So if we take a quick look at 2015, these are the numbers. This is the number that I started with, $36 per cow, net return per cow. Our high 20% dropped below $1,000, $900 per cow. So there were, I didn't change that, I'm sorry, that should be 40 farms, 40 dairy enterprises. And they're not representative of all dairy farms in Ohio. They're representative of people who wanted to do this work and get this information. But size-wise, they range from 30 cows to over 1,200 cows. And we talked about the range in net returns. But you do have, if you didn't pick it up, pick up a copy of the summary. The other thing that makes it more useful than just, oh, look what the average was, is it's also, there's information in there broken down by herd size, and there are benchmark reports broken down by herd size. Because if you're milking less than 100 cows, you don't really care what 1,200 cow herds you're doing. It doesn't help you. So there are some breakdowns by herd size and profitability there. But as we look over time, this net return per cow, bottom line, the dollars that the farm has to deal with. And so that's why I like to take it from the farm level to per cow. What are my cows doing, and do I have enough of them to meet the family living requirements and debt requirements that I have? So trends for the average of all farms kind of build up to that really lovely year in 2014, and chances are we'll never see that again. So it was nice, but what lessons can we learn from that? Down to $36 this year, and that high 20%, they consistently have averaged over $1,000. So 15 wasn't good for them either. They took a $1,000 drop from the previous year. So the final question then that kind of popped into my mind after this is, is this a good investment of my time and money? And when it's 7 degrees out with a minus 12 wind chill, that's when you really start thinking about, is this worth my time? So the last number we'll look at is rate of return on farm assets. There are 21 financial measures, but I just picked the ones that I think are ones that you probably need to get your arms around for this year at a minimum. And so the rate of return on farm assets takes a look at, of all these assets that I have, how much money did they generate and how did it compare to the total dollars I have invested in them? Basically, it's like if I had all my money in a CD, what interest rate am I getting? So I have all my assets invested in a farm operation. What is that returning to me? And bottom line, the higher the rate of return, the more profitable the farm business is. There's an example calculation for you. Net farm income, we're back to income statement. We add back interest expense because when we look at the interest rate and compare to other businesses, we're doing it without the influence of how much debt does the business have. So that's why the interest expense is added back. But we also subtract the value of operators, labor, and management. So we haven't paid ourselves yet here. And so in this summary, we have a standard that we use for calculating a value of labor and management. On many farms, it's about the same number that they draw. Other farms, it's more. Some, it's less. But you can find that calculation in there. So the difference there is the return to assets. So these dollars were available as a return to assets. Now you'll do something else with them. But if my farm, I had $420,000 in net farm income, my return to assets is $390,000, and my average total farm assets, so there we're getting that from our beginning balance sheet and our ending balance sheet, and the average of our total assets for the year, and it ends up being 0.061, and we think of that as a percent, so it would be 6.1%. So good or not? What would you have invested in otherwise, and what are your goals? We'd like to see, as the industry standard is, we'd like to see that greater than 8%. We really want to see it higher than what we're paying in interest on any loans. But in 2015, the rate of return on farm assets for these Ohio farms was 0. It was 0. It ranged from a loss of a negative 10% return on assets, which means they were losing money, to greater than 15%. And through the years, I have seen farms that hit 25% on good years. There are some farms that generally can generate a lot of return on the assets they have involved. But every time you buy another farm or buy a big piece of equipment, it impacts your potential return on asset, rate of return on assets. So you want to make sure that the investments you are making in your farm are contributing to the profitability of the farm or the long-term profitability of the farm. So is there enough cash? How much of my business do I own? How much equity do I have? And if I'm taking a loss, how many years before my equity's gone? There's a lot of talk now about burn rates on cash. Is there enough cash? Working capital. How fast are you burning through the working capital that you have if your business is in a deficit position right now? So how long do you want to go before you start burning into your equity, and how much are you willing to lose waiting for things to get better? Or what can we change now to make things better? We might not have a whole lot of control over price, but are there some other things that we can do? Really rethink how we're milking cows. Are there some opportunities there? Are we making money? And is it a good investment of my time and money? So there's a few calculations there. Get those balance sheets together, get that income statement together, and you can start looking at some of those if you haven't been already, and I would hope that actually you have been. The farm business summaries are there to look at what are some, what are other farms in Ohio doing? There's going to be a section this afternoon on benchmarking, and there's a lot of benchmarking information and tools that are in these summaries that you're welcome to use. Even if you don't participate in the summary, those are still tools that are available for your farm. You just want to be careful that when you're making comparisons that they're like comparisons, and so we try to define what it is we have in each of those, what are in the income items, what are in the expense items. If you are interested in being involved in farm business analysis, the contact information is there, and we'll be starting 2016 right after the first of the year.
Okay, any questions for Diane? Okay, let's thank Diane.